My mother died on a Tuesday. By Thursday, I had already identified her body, signed the paperwork at the funeral home, and called every person in her contacts list. By Friday, I was sitting in my childhood bedroom going through her things when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was her number. I stared at it for probably 4 full seconds before I answered. I don't know why I answered. I think grief does something to rational thinking. It makes you reach for any exit from what is true. The voice on the other end was hers. Not similar to hers. Not a recording of something she'd once said. It was her voice, the cadence of it, the specific way she said my name with that half-second pause before the second syllable. "Megan," it said. "I need you to check the drawer in the kitchen. The one by the stove." I hung up. I stood in that room for a long time with my hands shaking. Then I called her number back from my end. It rang 6 times and went to voicemail. Her voicemail. Her actual voice saying the actual greeting she'd recorded 3 years ago when she got a new phone. I told my brother. He thought grief was making me hear things. I thought so too, until it happened again 2 days later. Same number. Same voice. This time it said, "You need to stop going through my emails." I had been going through her emails, looking for unfinished business. Bills she might have auto-paid. Subscriptions. Nobody outside our immediate family knew that. I took the phone to a friend who works in IT security. He looked at the call logs, traced the origin of the number, and went very quiet. The calls weren't coming from her phone. Her phone was powered off. I had turned it off myself and put it in a box. Someone had spoofed her number and used a voice cloning tool to replicate her. What they needed to clone her voice was probably 30 seconds of audio. She had a public Facebook. She had voicemail. She had a video from my niece's birthday that she'd posted and never made private. We never found out who did it or why. The working theory is that someone knew she had died, saw an opportunity to access something, her accounts, her assets, her estate, and was testing whether the voice would get them past me. The detail that still doesn't leave me. The thing I think about when I'm trying to fall asleep is that it knew to say my name right. The pause. The exact half-second pause she always put there. Whatever built that voice had listened to her speak my name enough times to get that detail. Someone studied her. Enough to reassemble her. And then they called me from her grave. In February of last year, someone sent a video to 17 people I work with. My manager. 2 team leads. Several people I had lunch with every day. And a VP who had approved my last promotion. The video was of me. Or something that looked exactly like me. I don't need to describe what was in it. I'll just tell you that by the time I arrived at work on a Monday morning, the HR director was already waiting for me at the elevator. I had never made that video. I had never made anything like it. But the face in it was mine, my proportions, my hairline, the scar above my left eyebrow from a car accident in college. The lighting made it look real. The movement of the face made it look real. Nothing about it looked fake at a casual glance. HR pulled me into a room and showed me a still from it. I had to sit there and look at my own face doing something I had never done and explain to a woman I barely knew that this was not me. That the face was mine, but the rest of it was manufactured. That someone had taken photos of me from LinkedIn, from a conference panel I'd spoken on, from a team photo on the company website, and fed them into something that could construct a moving version of my face. The investigation took 11 weeks. I was placed on paid administrative leave while it happened. I was told this was standard protocol. I understood what it actually meant. Nobody was sure yet whether to believe me. My attorney sent the video to a forensic media analyst. The analyst found compression artifacts around the face, consistent with deepfake generation. Micro-blurring at the edges of the hairline. Unnatural eye reflection. Things invisible to anyone who wasn't specifically trained to look for them. We eventually traced the email account that sent it. It had been created 4 days before, used once, and abandoned. The account was registered with a temporary address. The IP resolved to a public library. We never identified the person. I went back to work 9 weeks later. Most of my colleagues were professional about it. But there were two people I had considered friends, who never quite looked at me the same way again. And I understood that too. Because the video looked real. And some part of the brain that processes images doesn't fully update when you're told something was fake. The thing that keeps me up is not the legal question, or even who did it. It's simpler and worse than that. Someone hated me enough, or wanted something from me badly enough, to spend real time building a version of me that could destroy my career. And I have no idea who that was. I look at everyone I know, and I cannot rule any of them out. That's what this kind of thing does. It doesn't just attack you. It poisons everything after. I broke up with a man I'll call Dominic after 8 months. He didn't take it well, which I knew going in, because he had never once taken bad news well about anything. But I told him in a public place, during the day, and then I blocked him on everything I could think of, and I told myself that was that. A week later, I got a message through an old email address, one I hadn't used in years, one I never gave him. The subject line was my full name. Attached to the email was a video file. I opened it. The video showed a woman sitting at a kitchen table. It took me 2 full seconds to understand what I was seeing, and then my stomach dropped. The woman was me. Or she had my face, my nose, my jawline, my eyes. She was sitting in a kitchen I didn't recognize, wearing clothes I didn't own, doing things with expressions I had never made. But the face was mine. Precisely, disturbingly mine. The email beneath it said only, I can make more. Or I can delete everything. Call me. I called the police instead. They came, they took a report, they told me what I was describing was a relatively new area of law, and they would look into it. I heard the hesitation in every sentence. My attorney filed for an emergency restraining order and sent a letter to Dominic's address. He denied everything. Said he hadn't contacted me, didn't know what they were talking about, had witnesses who could place him somewhere else when the email was sent. What I couldn't stop thinking about was the quality of it. The video didn't look like a cheap trick. It didn't flicker or blur. My face moved naturally. My blinks were natural. My skin caught the light in the way real skin catches light. He or someone he hired had fed the system enough photos of me to produce something that passed for real on a first watch. I went through my old social media. I had been photographed at angles and in lighting conditions I hadn't thought twice about for years. Birthday photos, work events, a vacation I'd posted about. All public, all right there. We eventually reached a civil settlement. The specifics are under an NDA. He was never criminally charged. I've made every account I have private since then. I've removed tags from photos going back 6 years. I've asked friends to stop posting images of me at events. My face used to be mine. I assumed that was a fixed thing, that whatever my face did in the world, it was doing because I was there, doing it. Dominic took that assumption from me, and I haven't been able to get it back. I need to tell this story because it almost worked. And if it had worked, I don't know what I would have done. My daughter is 9. Last spring she was in 3rd grade, and her teacher, I'll call her Miss Renner, used an app to communicate with parents. Normal stuff. Homework reminders, field trip notices, that kind of thing. One Thursday afternoon I got a call from a number I didn't recognize, but the voice was Miss Renner. I was certain of that. I'd spoken to her at 2 parent-teacher conferences. I knew her voice, the warmth of it, the slightly formal way she introduced herself, even when you'd met before. "This is Carrie Renner from Halford Elementary." That's how she always started. That's exactly how this call started. She said there had been a small accident at school. That Lily, my daughter, had fallen on the playground and might need to be seen by a doctor. That she'd tried the main line, but it had gone to voicemail. She asked me to come pick Lily up, and she asked me, while I was on my way, to verify my identity by confirming our insurance information over the phone so they could call ahead to urgent care. I was already standing up and reaching for my purse. I was already in the mode of doing whatever a school calls you to do when your child is hurt. The voice was right. The scenario was specific and plausible. Everything tracked. What stopped me was that I noticed the time. It was 2:40 the afternoon. School didn't let out until 3:15. If Lily had been hurt badly enough to need urgent care, I would have gotten an automated call from the school's main system. That's what the school always said to expect. And Miss Renner wouldn't have my direct cell number. I told the caller I needed to call the school directly to confirm, and I hung up. I called the school. Miss Renner was in her classroom. Lily was fine. Nobody had fallen on any playground. The school filed a report with the district. The police were notified. The theory was that someone had recorded Miss Renner, possibly from a school board meeting that had been live-streamed, and used it to generate enough voice material for the clone. Those meetings were public. They were archived on YouTube. They never determined what the caller actually wanted. The insurance information angle suggested financial fraud. But I've thought about other possibilities, and I don't let myself go there for long. What I think about is the gap between when I stood up from my chair and when I noticed the time. That gap was maybe 4 seconds. 4 seconds during which I had completely, totally believed that a person I trusted was telling me my child was hurt. 4 seconds is a very small margin. And whoever built that voice knew exactly how small they needed it to be. I found out by accident. A woman I'd never met sent me a message on Instagram asking if I was okay, because she'd heard through mutual friends that I'd been going through a really difficult time. I didn't know what she was talking about. I told her so. She went quiet for a moment, and then she sent me a link. The link was to a TikTok account. The handle was a version of my name with a number after it. The profile picture was a face that was close to mine, similar enough that someone who knew me casually might not question it. The account had 412 followers, some of whom were people I actually knew. The account had been posting for 22 months. Not just photos, videos. Short, informal videos, the kind people post when they're talking to their phone camera at home. About their day, about their life, about things that were supposedly happening to them. The face in the videos moved like a real face. It was not perfectly me. There were differences if you looked closely. But in a small format on a phone screen, scrolling fast, it was close enough. The account had talked about a breakup, a new apartment, a health scare, a job change, a trip to Portugal that I had never taken. People had commented with support, sent heart emojis, shared their own stories in response, built something that resembled a relationship with something that was wearing my face. I reported the account. The platform removed it within 72 hours. By then, I had screenshotted everything I could find. I reached out to the people I recognized in the followers. Most of them had no idea it wasn't me. They'd found the account through suggestions, assumed it was a secondary account I'd started, never thought to verify. 2 of them had sent the account money. Small amounts, but money, in response to posts about hard times that this thing had fabricated. The forensic specialist I hired confirmed the videos were synthetic face-swapped using a generative model. The base footage was of someone else entirely. My face had been composited over theirs. Whoever operated the account had been doing this adjusting, improving, making the overlay more convincing over nearly 2 years. I don't know who it is. I have suspicions and no evidence. What disturbs me most, more than the fraud, more than the impersonation, more than any of the practical damage, is that this version of me existed publicly for almost 2 years. It had conversations. It built a following. It had bad days and good days, and things happened to it. People cared about it. And not one part of it was ever me. None of it ever happened. But the people who watched it experienced something they believed was real. I keep thinking about what that means. About all the other faces that might be out there doing this right now. Living fake lives in someone else's name. Being believed. Being loved. By people who will never know they were looking at a lie. Even the darkest stories leave something behind. Stay with me. There are more stories.